Hello everyone. In this tutorial video, I'm going to explain the following topics here. Basically, I will be focusing on discussing how to use the jQuery and the div element. This is an HTML element to create dynamic page or to create a dynamic content in a page. Okay, so we will also be discussing, and we have to understand first also what is jQuery, okay, the syntax of a jQuery, and what is DOM or the document object model, including these simple functions of jQuery, so that we can create a simple dynamic web page. But before that, if you are not yet subscribed in this channel, please support the channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hit also the notification bell so that you will be notified with all the new videos that I'm going to upload in this channel. Like I said, the purpose of this tutorial video is to explain to you how can we use the jQuery and the div element. This is an HTML element. Okay, by using these two, we can create a dynamic page or a dynamic content in a page, meaning to say a certain portion of your page is dynamic. So that is our focus here. But before I'll show you how to create such program, okay, we have to define first what is jQuery. Okay, jQuery is a powerful JavaScript API, which makes it a lot easier to perform various standard JavaScript actions in your HTML page. So I can say that jQuery is more advanced version of the JavaScript. Basically, jQuery is also JavaScript, but it's more advanced than the standard JavaScript. All right. And the nice thing about this jQuery is that it is compatible with other browsers. Okay, which means that any page that you design with jQuery or it uses a jQuery will definitely work with other browsers. With the jQuery as well, you can make or you can design a page that is dynamic. Basically, the purpose of the jQuery, one of the purposes of the jQuery actually is to create dynamic content. So if your problem is to design a dynamic content, then jQuery can be helpful, or it can solve your problem if the problem is simply how to design a page with dynamic content. Okay, so that's the nice thing about this jQuery. So that's how we define jQuery here. So if you know already JavaScript, then basically you know already jQuery, right? So now jQuery has this syntax here. This is the basic syntax of jQuery. So you have to type $, open parenthesis, selector, close parenthesis, that action, and whatever is this action here. Okay, so open and close parenthesis. Sometimes you need to put parameter inside this parenthesis here, or parameters. Okay, so it depends on that action. Okay, so the action is something like a function. This is the name of the function actually. Okay, because jQuery is only a file actually. Okay, jQuery is simply a collection of functions. Function definitions. All the definitions of all the functions of the jQuery are inside this what we call jQuery file. Okay, it's only a file. It's actually only a small file. Okay, but inside this file are the definitions of all the functions that you can use to make dynamic content. So basically, it's only like that. Now, where can we get this jQuery? this jQuery can be downloaded from its website, jquery.com. So you can just download it from this page. All right. So when you download, or after you downloaded this page, you just have to put that, this file, not the page, sorry. After you downloaded this file, all you need to do is to place this file or the file to a certain folder. In this case, what I did is, okay, I have one HTML file here. Okay, we will apply jQuery functionality here in this file here. This is HTML file. And then the jQuery file that I'm referring to, the library of jQuery, I'm going to put it inside the jQuery folder. All right. Of course, here it is. Right. Of course, this file can be placed outside this folder. You can place it anywhere. Okay. So you can place it inside a certain folder like this, or you can place it outside this folder. So you can put it here. All right. But for this example, I will be placing this jQuery folder, this jQuery file in this folder, jQuery. All right. Because when you create the HTML file where you will apply the jQuery, okay, I have it already here. This is it, this one here. All right, so here it is. You have to tell the browser where the jQuery can be found. Okay, so here it is. So as you can see here, so I have mentioned here source src. You're going to use here script. All right, /script. So you have to tell here that the jQuery can be found, the library of jQuery, right, can be found in this folder jQuery. So you have to say src is equal to jQuery / then the name of the jQuery library. So the extension of this, or the file name extension of this, is .js. So it's going to be like this. All right. Now, when you design a page and you will be hard coding, or you will use hard codes, definitely you will start by typing HTML and then your head. You will be using head. That is where, okay, inside this head, that is where you will place now this script here. This is where you will define where is the location of your jQuery. So you will be using script tag and then src, and then again, there is no data in the middle here. All you need to do is just to end it using the /script element here, the ending tag for the script. That's all there is. All right. And then after the head, okay, that will be your body. All right. You have to define here the body of the HTML file, and the content will be inside the body, of course. And then don't forget that you need to save this as .html file. Okay, so it's an HTML file. All right. It could be also a PHP file if you are working in a PHP file. All right. So, or any other programming, web application programming language, for example, ASPX, for the .NET technology web application development, right? So here, let's just use HTML, right? So it's like this, or I'm just using an HTML just to demonstrate this jQuery and DIV here. All right, so it's going to be like this. Now, let's go back to this selector here. All right, this syntax here. So what is this selector here? Okay, a selector can be an element ID, a class, or the universal select character asterisk, which means if you use the asterisk, you're going to select all the elements available in a document. Okay, basically, the query, if you will define what is the meaning of query, the query simply means you like to find for something, or find, right? Query means find. So you want to find for something. So you want to find for the selector. And what is that selector again? It could be an element, it could be an ID, it could be a class, all right? Or it could be an asterisk. If you put asterisk, that means you're going to look for all the elements available in a document. Okay, so it's like that. Now, when we say document, this is your HTML, just like this. This is your document here. Okay, so you're going to look for an element. Let's say I want to look for the element head, and you will have an action for that. All right. I'm going to look for an ID. Okay, and then you will have an action for that. Okay, now this tutorial video will be focusing on using the element ID. Okay, so we will be using element ID here. So we will not be using class or the CSS. Usually class is used for CSS. Okay, if you would like to look for a CSS code or CSS, the meaning of a particular CSS style, then you can use the class, right? Or if you want to look for an element, like for example here, head or the script. Okay, so but here again in this tutorial video, I will be focusing on the ID. We will be using the ID as our selector. Okay, so that we can create dynamic content for our page, right? So it's going to be like that. Okay, so again, don't forget $selector, that action. This is the basic syntax of the jQuery. All right, now again, let's go back to our HTML file. Okay, now you have to define again script here, right? You have to define here script, and what is the purpose of this script here? It is here where you will put your document ready. It's the only place where you can put the document ready function. All right. So what is this document ready function? Every time you will use a jQuery, definitely you will be using this document ready function. In fact, this is part of a jQuery. The document ready function is a basic part of using jQuery. So like I said, every time you use jQuery, definitely you will be using document ready. And it's a must, because if you don't use the document ready, you did not define the document ready, jQuery libraries will not work. Okay. The document ready function executes when the DOM, or the document object model, which means your HTML file, is completely loaded in the browser. All right, so that means the page will be loaded, and then all your content, all the content inside, all the programs inside this document ready will be initialized. Okay, so that's the purpose of the document ready, to initialize all your jQuery codes that you will define here to make sure that they will work when the page is loaded, or to make sure that those codes are initialized when the page is loaded. Okay, because we have to remember, when you run your page, it will only execute once. Okay, the moment that you see the display, okay, in a particular website or in a particular web page, okay, all the functionalities are already available there. All you need to do is to use those functionalities, or that web application will just use those functionalities. For example, click event. You have a click event. Your page have a click event. You design a page with a click event. So when you click that object, for instance, a button, okay, there will be a trigger there. It will trigger the click event, so therefore it will execute all the codes for that event. So that's the purpose of this document ready, to make sure that all of those are initialized, okay, before the page or after the page is loaded. Okay, so that's the purpose of this document ready, and so you have to put this document ready here. So script and then document ready. Okay, there are two ways to define the document ready, or to place the document ready. You can use this line number 6 here. This is the traditional way of placing the document ready, or I call this one a shortcut, line number 7. You can just use this this code here. Dollar function, open and close parentheses, open curly bracket, and then close curly bracket, and then close parentheses, and then semicolon. All right. So this open parentheses here, that's where the red one here, right? Those are the pair. And this open curly bracket here, this one here, line number 9, that's the pair. All right. So it's like that. So or if you don't like to use this shortcut version of document ready, you can use this one here. Okay. Dollar document.ready function. All right. But normally I just use this one. Okay. So it's like this. So inside this document ready will be your jQuery codes, JavaScript code, jQuery codes, or jQuery function call will be assigned here, or will be placed here. Okay, so that's how we start our document or the page, right? So it's going to be like this. Now, the next one is the div. Okay, we're going to use the div here. All right, what is the purpose of the div? Well, div is an HTML element actually. It serves as a container. Okay, so when we say container, it's something that we can put something in it, right? Like for example, your bag. All right, so you have a bag, you can put something inside your bag. So that's a container. Your bag is a container. So similarly here, we can use div to divide actually, or to set a certain section of a page. Okay, so for example, the upper part of the page, I'm going to I'm going to put a section there. So we have to use a div in order for you to put a section there, part of a page. All right, so it's something like that. Okay, so how do we place, or how do we use the div? So very basic. Let's put it in our body here. All right, so I'm just going to say here div, and then we have to assign ID. Remember, I told you that we will be using the element ID, or the ID of a particular element, okay, as our selector. This is our reference point. Every time we want to do something on a particular ID, okay, or on a particular element, okay, we will use the ID to trigger the dynamic content, all right, or to trigger processing. Okay, so something like that. So div ID equal, let's call it as, okay, let's call this as header. Okay, I'm going to have a header at the top of the page. All right, so it's going to be like that. So I'm going to have a div there. So slash and then slash div. Okay, so what happened here? Basically, what happened here is that you have a page, and you provided, or you placed there one section in that page at the upper portion of the page. With one section, you place there a one section, and that section, the ID of that section is ID, header. The ID is header. Okay, so if you would like to put a static data, so you can just say, let's put here university, the word University of London, for instance. Okay, so meaning to say you created one section in your page with an ID of header, and the content of that section or of that container is University of London. This is static. University of London is static. Let's try to run it. Okay, even if we don't have a function here, it will work. It's supposed to be going to work. So let us see. So I will be using Firefox. Okay, again, I saved this program, this HTML file here to be that HTML file, of course. I save it like that. So it is here in this folder here. So let's see. So all I need to do, this is it. The name of that is example1.html. So all I need to do is to drag it here. And so let's see it. There you go. It is displayed, right? Now, as you can see, it's like a normal page, you know, so something like you did not even use a div. All right, but actually there is a div here. You just don't see it, but it is there. Now for you to see it, okay, let us put here something like, let's use inline CSS, no? Just for you to see that there is a section there with an ID of header. So I'm just going to use an inline CSS to display a background color. For instance, style is equal to background color. There you go. And I'm just going to use the blue color, semicolon. All right, so that's how it is. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to save and pop up our Firefox browser. I'm just going to refresh now. There you go. So as you can see, like I said, you have here something like this is your page. Oops, sorry. There you go. So see here. So you have placed a section here with an ID of header. And here it is. All right. So it's a container. You put a div here, so it's div is a container. So you can put anything here actually inside this div here. Okay, as you can see, we have placed University of London. This is what we put there. Okay, so however, we just put it statically. So meaning to say, when we say static data or content, the content was placed during coding, right? Because when we say dynamic content, it means the content may change when the program is running. Okay, meaning to say when the page is loaded, and then the content may change there, all right, during runtime. So that's dynamic. So this one is static. Okay, so it's going to be something like this. All right, so now you see that there is a section here. Now, of course, you can place any other things. I mean, any other data. Okay, for instance, you will be placing here United States. All right, of America, for instance. Let us see what will happen. I'm going to refresh now. There you go. So you see, technically, if you're going to see it, there are two sections now in your page. Okay, this one here with an ID of header. We have a div here. That's the first section. And then this is the main section actually now. Okay. Or actually, this page doesn't have a section. It's a whole page. But this part here is one section. All right. So it's going to be like that. Okay. So that's the purpose of the div, to create a section. Okay. We can also create a section inside a table. For instance, let's have a table. So I'm going to use a table here. Let's see how it goes there. Here, table. Let's put BR here. Right, so table border, I'm going to say 1, and I'm going to say the width that is equal to about 60%. All right, so it's going to be like this. So definitely we have a table, so we should have a TR, right? So let's say we will have 3 columns, right, for a particular row. So 1, 2, 3. Right, so that's how it is. There you go. So let's have another row and another row. So 3 rows with 3 columns. So meaning to say 3 rows with 3 columns, that's our table. So let's say 4, I can say 5, I can say 6, 7, 8. So that, all right. So I'm going to save. Let's see how it goes. I'm just going to refresh this one here, and there you go. There you go. Right, so this is our, okay. So again, based on our code, we have something like we have a div in this area here. Okay, we set a certain section. It's called header. we assign an ID for that section and using the div, and it is header. And then on the next line, we have United States of America. That's a data. Okay, we can consider this as data or content, but not, or we did not use a div, meaning to say, this is the main portion of the page. This is the main area of the page. Okay, so we are outside. We did not display this inside the div. So same also for the table. So there you go. We have the table here after United States of America. So we have a table here. So and the content continues. No, it's up to you now. Now we can also assign a section here if you wish to. Let's say, for instance, in this column here, first row, second column. So if you would like to provide a div there or place a div there, it's also possible. So you just have to say like this. Okay, so don't forget to put the ID. So let's say like this. ID, let's say, let's call it column 2. Okay, row 1, col 2. Let's say like this. Okay, so the ID, it's up to you, whatever ID specification that you would like to have, or ID name, simply ID name. So it's going to be like this. Okay, so when you run now, let's see again. So there you go. We don't have a data there inside, all right, in between the div and the slash div. So there is no data there. That's why we don't have anything here. But there is a div here. All right, there is a div here. Okay, so you can put anything here, right? You can put any content here in this TD here. So one of the content right now that we have is this div. Okay, so it's here. So if you want to put a static content, you can put the 2 there. For instance, it's 2. So when we run, there you go. Okay, so it's going to be like that. Okay, now let us use jQuery this time, since we have the div already. Okay, let us use the jQuery to put dynamic content. All right, meaning to say, when we run it, it's the program that will put the content. All right, so it's the program that will place the content. Okay, so let us say here in this div here, in our div here, we have a div here. We will place here the word to dynamically, the word to. Okay, or whatever content you would like to place there. So in this case, let's just put the word to dynamically. So there should be no to there, because instead we will make it dynamic. It will be displayed dynamically. So we need now the jQuery, right? So let's go back to our function here, the document ready function. All right. So all you need to do now, again, you have to make sure that you have the ID there, because this is the ID that we will look for. All right, this is the one that we will find. Remember, query means to find, right? So I would like to find for that ID. So I'm just going to say $. Remember the syntax of the jQuery? Here it is, this one here. So $, open, all right? After which, open quote. It should be like this, no? Open and close quotes, double quotes, no? And then, because we are using ID, okay, we will be using hashtag there, or the pound sign for the ID. For the class, you are going to use dot. Okay, so it's like this. If it is an element, just say the element. For example, you are looking for element body, so it's only like that. But for the ID, it should start with the hashtag or the pound sign or the sharp sign. It's going to be like this, and then the name of the ID. So the ID name is rdcall2. This is our selector now. Okay, our selector is ID, element ID. Okay, so we're going to look for that element ID. It's called R1 call 1 or row 1 R1 call 2. All right, so that's where it is. Okay, and then the next part of the syntax will be that, and then your action. My action is I would like to use the append semicolon. Okay, this is one simple function of jQuery wherein it allows us to place, okay, or to append a content within your selector with the selector that you defined here, or the selector that you're going to use here. Okay, so let's say append there we go. Meaning to say, it will place this word to inside the div that we defined here. The div with an ID of R1 call 2. That is what will happen here. Alright? So if we try to run this one now, as you can see, there is no data here. So when we run it, okay, page will be loaded, and then this will be initialized, which means it will run. So that means it will just simply display the word 2. So when we refresh this one now here, there you go, the word 2 is there. This one was displayed dynamically. Alright, so again, just don't forget, this is the only syntax that you need to remember. $selector that action. And like I said, this tutorial video will be only focusing on how to use the div and the jQuery to create dynamic content. Okay, of course, the selector that we are going to use is the ID. Alright, so it's like this, because it's possible to use element or it's possible to use class, but we will just be focusing on the ID. Alright, so here it is. So by using ID, okay, so it can also be a variable, no? So you can place a value there. Okay, for instance, here let's have a variable var, let's say x is equal to 10. Okay, and then I will display also that 10 here after the 2. I will display that there. So I can say something like I'm just going to copy this and paste it, append, and then I will just say x. So the value of x, I'm going to append it, or I'm going to display it, okay, dynamically in that div, that section of the page. So I'm going to say save here. I'm going to refresh now, and there you go. So we have here the 10 here. Okay, so we did not put data here statically, but instead dynamically. So it's something like this. Right? So it's like this. Now you can also design or something like design or something like to change the style of your content. No? For instance, let's have another one. For instance, I'm going to say here the word 3. Okay, but I would like to display it in bold. So meaning to say, I'm going to put a little bit design property. So let's say build. I'm going to use the B and /B. There you go. So what will happen is that just like PHP, these are recognized by jQuery or the JavaScript. All right, these are recognized as HTML tag, and also this one. So that means this is the ending of the bold property. All right, so that means this one will be displayed, the word 3, but not the HTML element, because they are considered or they are recognized as HTML element. So let us try to run. I already saved. So as you can see, the word 3 is in bold. So you can combine your HTML and HTML tags within your content or for your content. Okay, so it's like that. Well, how about the variable x? I would like to make it in italic. I would like to display it in italic, but x is a variable. So very simply, you will just say something like this. This time you will be using the concatenation character plus. Okay, so it will be something like this, /I. There you go. Okay, so let's test and refresh. There you go. You see, as you can see, the 10 there, the number 10 there is in italic. So as you can see here. All right. So this is displaying dynamic content using jQuery and with the container div element. Okay, so and again our div here, again the div here is our container, okay, where we put our dynamic content. And to differentiate many divs, okay, because it is possible that you have so many divs, so to differentiate the other divs, and so we assign an ID for each div. Okay, so that's the purpose of the ID there. Okay, that is what we want to find. All right, so that is what we want to query, something like this. So your action is append, no? So another one will be let's say let's have this empty here. What is this empty here? Okay, so if we say something like here. Okay, so I'm just going to put it here. So if I say here empty, okay, basically the purpose of this empty, it's a function, jQuery function. The definition of this is that it will clear all the content. Okay, it will clear all the content of the container for this ID. All right, so R1 call 1 dot empty, meaning to say you're trying to empty now. You're going to empty now whatever is the content of this div here. All right, and then after that it will add the word 3. So what will happen is that, okay, you put 2 here, and then you put the value of, you place the value of x, and then you just remove those data or content, and then you added the word 3 or place the word 3. So therefore, we should see only the 3 here once we refresh. So let us refresh. There you go. That's what happened. All right. So dynamically. So that's the purpose of the empty there. Again, basic function or basic syntax, $selector that action. Simple as that. All right. Okay. So what about our header here? We have 2 div here, right? Okay, so our first div here, our first section here, the ID of that section using div is header. We can also have dynamic content there. So instead of placing the University of London as a static data or content, I can just put it here. So perhaps I can put it here, right? So again, your selector will be header, right? But header is an ID, so therefore I have to put first the pound sign, close parenthesis, that append, open quotation, there you go, and it will be like this. All right, so that's what happened. I mean, this is our code. So let us see now. I'm going to refresh now. So basically it's the same thing, just that this time this University of London is displayed dynamically, not statically or not static. Okay, so as you can see, there is no data there. Okay, basically with this kind of concept, okay, you can now put content that are coming from, for example, an XML data or a JSON data, or even database records from a database or table. For instance, you have MySQL database with table, and those tables have records. So those records can be also displayed here dynamically. All right. So this is simply how it is. So the only problem there is just you have to use their Ajax so that you can get those data and display them here. To display them here, this is it. It's already something like this. All right. So I think that will be my next video for next time to discuss how to get data from all these files, JSON file or XML file or database file. So it's like that. So watch for that video. So nonetheless, let's continue our discussion here. What else I need to discuss here? Let's have an event. Okay, let's have an event. Click event. So I need a button. For instance, let's put a button right here. Okay, I will just be placing it here in row 2, column 1, here in the place of the 4. Okay, so I will be placing that here. So I will just put it down like this. Okay, so what we will do is that let's have an event, click event. So we will place a button there. We will place a button here that when I click that, it will display, for instance, how are you, or hi there. Okay, so something like that, using alert, for instance. Okay, so let us see. Okay, so I need here a button. All right, so I'm just going to say input type is equal to button, then followed by value. Okay, this is the label of the button. Let's say, for instance, click here. So something like this. All right, so click here. There you go. All right, and then don't forget that you have to have an ID. You have to assign an ID because you need to put an event for this button, and every time we click this button, an action will appear. Okay, but this time we will be using jQuery to trigger that event. So something like that. So ID, let's call it as hi. So something like this. Okay, so the name of the hi BTN, let's call it hi BTN. All right, the ID is called hi BTN or button, whatever ID name that you wish to put here, it's up to you. You can also place this ID, it doesn't matter, you can also put it here in the beginning, it doesn't matter. Okay, so there you go. You can place the ID anywhere, in the middle or the last part here or in the beginning here, right after the input, it doesn't matter. All right, so we have already the ID. Don't forget, ID is our point of reference for calling the select as our selector. All right, so now this time we need to create a function for this event. Our event is click, so we need to create a function for that, right? So where do we write it? So we can write it here. All right, so I need a button for that button function. All right, click event. So again, don't forget this this syntax here for the jQuery basic syntax. So dollar open, all right, parenthesis, open double quote. I'm just going to say pound sign here. What is the name of our button or the ID of our button? It's called hi BTN, close parenthesis, that, all right, click. Okay, open parenthesis, then you just have to say function. We need another function inside, so it's like this, open parenthesis, close, curly bracket, close curly bracket, parenthesis, and semicolon. So basically, this is how I do it every time I need a click event for a particular button. Okay, so your action is click, and inside the click, the parameter of the click is a function. All right, so again, let's see if it is correct. We have here open curly bracket, so that's the end of it. Then this one here, open parenthesis, that's the pair of it, right here, line number 10 here. And of course, this open and close here, those are the pair. And then followed by the semicolon there. All right, so as you can see, you created a function. All right, so something like you created a function. Okay, so dollar against your selector, that action. All right, so again, inside the action click, will be a function. That's why you have an ending here. All right, so something like you created a function. So when you click, something will happen. So when you click, all your codes will be executed here. Okay, let's see first if the button is there. Let's see. I'm going to refresh now. There you go. We have the button here. Okay, well, so when we click this, nothing will happen because we don't have any code here in line number 9. Nothing will happen. All right, so we have to put our code here. So what will happen when we click that button? Okay, let's put our code now. Simply, we just want to use the alert just to display hi there. So simple as this. Let's just make it simple first. Okay, just for you to see that the code here will execute. And so I need to refresh now. And when I click, there you go. This is the alert. Actually, we're just using alert to display something. It's a dialog box actually. It's a dialog box using JavaScript to display something in a dialog box or display content in a dialog box. So here it is. So when you click OK, and it will disappear. All right. So simple as this. Okay. So that's an example of a click event. All right. So let's have another example. Let's say let's have this val here. Let's use this val here. Okay, so for instance, let's put here, okay, in line 1 here, sorry, row 1, let's say here in row 3, column 1, row 3, column 1. Let's put here a text box, okay, and then we will get the data. We will input something in that text box, and then we will get that content. And when we click that button, we will get that content and display that content. All right, so let's see that one. So what we want to do again, here in row 3, column 1, we will place here a text box and we will place also a button here. Okay, we will input something in that text box, and when I click that button, okay, we will display whatever we type in that text box. We will display it here. Okay, here in the place of 3. Remember this 3 here, this is a dynamic, we have a div here, right? And that is the R1 call 2, if you recall that, no? So let us see something like that. We will display it here dynamically, right? So let's put first our text box. So I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to put it something like this. I'm going to place it something like this. I'm going to say input type is equal to, of course, it's a text box. All right. So then followed by an ID is equal to, let's call it name, no? So txt name. Okay. So we can even put here a label name. So after that, text box. Okay, text type is equal to text, ID is equal to txt name. It's up to you whatever name ID you wish to provide here. All right, and then followed by what? Followed by, let's put just put it here. I need a button, so I'll just copy this and I will paste it here. So let's call it as this button is get name btn. So let's just call it like that. So alright, so it's like this. So the value. Okay, so this is the label of the button. Alright, and this will be the ID of the button. Alright, so as you can see, we have both IDs. So let us see it first. I'm going to refresh now. There you go. So we have the label name there, we have the text box here, and we have the button display name here. Okay, so as you can see, it's something like this. There you go. Here it is. All right. Now, let's get now the data. I will type here I will click this button here and we will display it here in our div here. Remember, we have a div here, and that is the R1 call to, right? Remember that one? So let's see. So what will happen is that let's have an event for this one, display name button. So what's the name of our button? Get name btn. We already have it here, as you can see here. All right, we already have it here. I'm just going to copy this because it's the same. Just that we have to change this one. All right, what's the name again of our? Okay. This is our button. I'm just going to copy that. Again, I will just paste it here. Paste it there. So when it is clicked, what will happen? I'm just going to use the val function. Okay. So what is the name of our text box or the ID? So I'm just going to use the ID. Okay. So I'm going to look for the ID txt name. So I will just say here dollar again. We need jQuery. Open double quote, pound sign, then the name, close double quote, close parenthesis, that, and then your action. Your action is val, open and close, semicolon. So meaning to say, that val means it's a function where you will get the content of this text txt name. And this txt name is actually a text box here, right? So it's going to be like that. So it's like this. So however, I need another variable. Let's call it dname. Var dname is equal to, okay, get the value using the that val. All right, and then we will just display it. Where again? We will just display it here. All right, here again we have a div here, row 1 column 2. Remember that? And that is the div there is this one here. The ID is R1 call to. We will display it there. So again, we will display it there. So therefore, we need the append function, right? So again, basic syntax, dollar, open parenthesis, all right, open double quote, pound sign, the name of the ID of that div, close parenthesis, that, append what? Dname, semicolon. All right, so it's going to be like this, right? Let us see if this going to show there. I'm going to refresh now. There you go. Again, this is what we added. This one here. All right, this part here. So I'm just going to say here, let's say mic and display mic. We will display it here. All right, so display. There you go. The mic is there. All right. So every time you click, mic will be there. All right, because that's how we designed it. It will keep on appending. That's the function of the append. It will keep on appending content. All right. So if you wish to remove before displaying or before placing the data in that section or in that div, you can simply say, if you wish to display only that name, all right, only that name. Every time you click that, whatever is the name that you type, that's the only one that will be displayed. And so therefore, what you need is empty function. All right, remember we have an empty here. I already discussed empty here, meaning to say it will remove all the content of that particular section. In this case, the div. So I'm going to save. All right, so let us see now. Refresh. So mic is there already. So I'm just going to display mic. See, it's mic. I click display again, it's mic. If we change this to let's say Dwight and display name, there you go. All right, so that's how it is. Okay, so this is how we use jQuery and the div and the ID to display or to create dynamic content. content or to display dynamic content in a page. All right. Okay, so I guess I discussed all this now, except for the slide toggle. Okay, this one is very simple. This is a simple animation actually. Let's say, for instance, let's have another button. Okay, let's have another button right here in row 1, column 1. All right, this one here. Let's replace this one here to be a button. That every time I click, okay, two things will happen. When I click for the first time, it will hide this table as a whole, this table. And when I click it again, okay, so it will show again the button. But I think we need to place our button outside. We can put our button outside the table, because if we hide the button together with the table, then we will not see anymore the button. So let's just put our button right after United States of America. So let us see that one there. Where's the United States? Here. All right. So let's place it here, right? So again, just to make it a little bit fast, because our video is coming a bit long now. All right. So I'm going to say here, hide show btn. All right. It's a button, and I'm just going to say here, hide / show table. All right. So every time I'm going to refresh now. There you go. All right. So if you wish to put it at the bottom of the United States, then we have to put a BR here. So I already placed. There you go. Okay. So when I click this one, it will hide the whole table. All right. If I click it again, it will show the whole table using slide toggle. Okay. So it's a function in jQuery to toggle between on and off, something like this. But in this case, we will be using this to hide and unhide our table. So therefore, there you go. Here, this is our ID. So I'm just going to copy that ID. Again, we need an event for that one. No, so we need an event. So we can place it here. This is our event here. No, so I'm just going to copy this. All right, because it's the same. And then this is the ID of our button, right? This one here. Okay, I'm just going to place it here, right? There you go. So sorry. Oops. Wait. Here it is. There you go. So this is our click event. Okay, hide show btn. Right? That is, here it is. No? That's the ID of our button. Okay, so once I click it, it will hide the table. All right. Now, look at our table. How can we hide our table? All right. We have to have an ID here. We have to assign an ID here. That will be our trigger. I mean, that is our selector. All right. So we have to find for the selector, and we will do something about that selector. All right. And so our ID here, that's our selector. Let's call it as table1. Okay, so we will find for the ID with the name of table1, and we will toggle it. I mean, we will on and off, show and display it, or hide or show it. So table1. So what we need is something like this here. So again, basic syntax: $, open parenthesis, open double quote, $, table1, close double quote, close parenthesis, that slide toggle. That is our action. As simple as this. Okay. So slide toggle is something like an on and off function. So in this case, it will hide this ID, table1, and this table1 ID is for our table here. Let's see if it's going to work. I'm going to refresh now. Okay, I'm going to hide the table now here. There you go. It's not there anymore. So when I click it again, there you go. It showed. Right, I'm going to put again another name here. Let's call it Michael, and display. And there you go. Michael is there. All right. So this is how we do it with jQuery and div. All right. So basic syntax again. Do not forget $selector that action. There are so many functions, built-in functions for jQuery. There are so many. There are thousands. Okay, so it's very difficult for all of us to, for me to discuss all of those. But there are a lot of books about jQuery where you can find the definition of the many functions, and you just have to apply those if you need to apply those in your projects. All right. So, but basically, this is how we do it with jQuery and div to display dynamic content. So 3 things that we used here: jQuery, div, and the ID. We assign ID for each div, or we assign ID for an element that we wish to dynamically process, something like that. Okay, so I hope you have learned in this tutorial. I know it's too long, but yeah, I guess that's it. Simple way of creating dynamic content. Okay, so again, for you to understand this better, do not skip the video. What I mean is you have to watch from the beginning to the end, and so that you will understand clearly what I'm trying to discuss here. Okay, so if you like this video, please hit the like button. Share it also with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Support the channel by subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again on my next video. My next video will be about XML. How do we get data from an XML file? And we will display the data dynamically in a page, including JSON. I will also discuss JSON on my future videos. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching.